Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where socially awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all-around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Nerdy Occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello and good evening, folks. Happy summer solstice / midsummer's eve, and also happy Father's Day to anyone out there who gives the slightest damn about that.
I'm sure there are people that do. And I am your host / Timeline Wannabe, the Brainstormer of Pop Culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I could be better, but I also could be a lot worse, so all in all, meh.
Yeah, kind of the same. So we're not really glass half full, we're not really glass half empty. It's just a glass.
Yeah, the glass appears to be simply existing. No one knows if it's being filled or if it's being emptied, but it's there.
You know, I've never really liked that way of thinking. I'm more of the mindset, just be happy you have something to drink.
I'm more of the, you can't tell if something is full or empty unless you can see it being either filled or empty. All you can meaningfully say is that you have half of a glass of water. You can't say that it's half full or half empty unless you physically put water into it or take water out of it. And then if you're filling or emptying it, then you can say it's half empty or half full. I actually almost made a video about that, like solving 3 of philosophy's most annoying paradoxes or something. But I never got around to it. I might still someday. So, for anyone that's interested in that, enjoy your free preview of my hysterical philosophical battling.
Right. Okay, so I wouldn't say we have a fun night planned because, it's us and what we usually cover, so.
It's at least a full night planned tonight. There's lots to cover. And yes, we're going to get around to those elephants currently sitting in the room that everyone else has been covering this week.
Yep. Anyway. So speaking of which, first one, which is, I believe has been covered like once or twice.
Yeah, I know Christy covered it because I was on that stream. And I know Comics Division covered it because I saw him covering it with his friends. I think some of the same people were on that stream as well.
Okay, so this is from Variety.com. This is by Tim Gray. It was published June 17th, 2020. So 10 problematic films that could use warning labels.
Fuck yourself already, Tim. No, well, unless the stuff in question is particularly graphic to a reasonable sensibility, nothing requires a warning label. If you can't put away your morality for 5 seconds, then my advice to you is the same as my advice to the fundamentalist Christians. Get the galactic fuck over yourselves. No one is going to offend your God or your abstract sensibility of the people. Get the fuck over it. And if your God or your abstract conception of the people are that hypersensitive that being insulted would offend them, then maybe find a different fucking God. Is all I'm saying. Moving on.
Indeed. It's now widely accepted that despite being a beloved classic, Gone with the Wind needs an explanation of its context. Oh, God damn it, you piece of shit, pop-up bastard.
That's the most angry I've ever seen you get over
Well, I'm in
something.
the middle of reading something, and that just pops out blocking the words I'm reading.
Yeah, to borrow a phrasing from Dr. Doofenshmirtz, curse you, pop up the ad.
Let me start over. There's actually a video where I get incredibly mad. I will send that to you. Like I did a rant once.
I, I'm sure you did. I will have to watch it.
Yeah,
And
it's literally the only video in a list of brainstormer ranges like on my channel.
okay, I'll have to go and find it then.
It's Thundercats Roar.
Oh,
I think that was 2 years ago. Like that's
yes, yes, it was, and now the rage makes sense.
no, like I made that video 2 years ago, and it's literally the only video of a rage I've done.
Yeah, because Thundercats Roar was unspeakable. Unspeakable. I tell you, unspeakable.
And I think I almost lost my voice from that because I was yelling so much.
Yeah, it is an occupational hazard of what we do. I've had days where I've almost lost my voice sometimes.
Okay, so let me start over. It's now widely accepted that despite being a beloved classic, Gone with the Wind needs an explanation of its context when it's screened on TV or in theaters.
Or you could do the research yourself and realize that the story is actually about anti-racism. Thank you. It's not as though the characters of color, quote unquote, are portrayed negatively, you absolute morons. The first black woman ever to win an Oscar won it for Gone with the Wind. It was the longest running movie in American box offices for the longest time. It was the movie that ran basically from the beginning of World War II to the end of World War II. And this movie that unified a nation in a time where we were literally fighting actual, honest to goodness, self-identifying and self-effacing Nazis that won the first black woman to ever win an Oscar, said Oscar, you're going to slap a warning label on it because it doesn't have enough context. Or just maybe, and here's the other option, you could pay the fuck attention to it. And if you have concerns or questions or criticisms, go the fuck online and do some goddamn research. I know you all are emotionally reactionary, anti-intellectual fuckheads, but you have Google at your disposal. You don't even have to go to a library to look this shit up anymore. You can find it by 5 seconds worth of intrigue. Please have the intellectual curiosity of a 5-year-old of the previous generation, please.
I've actually never seen that movie, not to my memory.
Um, it's long, just for the record. It's like 3 hours. Uh,
I don't mind 3 hour movies. It's just I've never like okay. I'm gonna be completely honest. I've never even heard of this movie. God, hold on. Okay, I am back, but I will also have to disappear again real quick. But yeah, no, let me read a little bit more, and then don't buy me like 5 minutes of rant.
okay.
HBO Max says it will eventually restore the Oscar-winning film to the service, but with context and framing. It's a start, but Hollywood's vaults are filled with movies that could benefit from an explainer or disclaimer about outdated depictions of race, sexuality, disabilities, and more. Okay, be right back.
Just maybe you could consider that, generally speaking, when things like that are brought up, what's funny about a racist joke or a sexist joke or what have you is not the racism or sexism in said joke. It is the racism and sexism itself. Because you see, racism, sexism, and all of the other isms are inherently stupid. And generally speaking, when a otherwise sane and salient person says stupid shit for the sake of comedy, the point is to laugh at the stupid thing in question. Racist jokes are often at the expense of the racist. Sexist jokes are often at the expense of the sexist. And those that aren't, in the case of these things, usually are referring to a cultural truth about a given demographic of people. Because you see, certain groups of people share perspectives in common. In other words, humor is, as you would put it, my darlings, intersectional. So maybe you shouldn't tone police people who are basically being the pioneers of anti-racism that you yourself claim to be. Just maybe. Oh, that's the end. That's the end of the rant. So I need to think of a way to fill in the void while he's busy doing other things. Do. Yeah, I can't think of any songs I haven't already done to fill the void with. Let's see. I wish there was a song in Gone with the Wind that I could sing, or I would sing that, but there is none, so damn. God damn it. Dead air is fucking annoying. How in the fuck am I supposed to? But I'm. Damn. And I'm trying to think of a racist like song or something that I could sing, but I'm not thinking of any. Could that itself be an indicator that these problems aren't maybe as bad as you think? You mental cases who write these articles. Tim, I think his name was Tim. Could that perhaps be an indicator of anything, Tim? Or are things only cultural indicators when you say they're cultural indicators? And incidentally, is it ever racist to tell a joke that starts with white people, though? I'm not defending white people from being the subjects of racial humor. I'm just saying sometimes when race is brought up as the context for a joke, it's not even to disparage the race in question. It's just to make an observation about society and culture. How Chris Rock, for fuck's sake, has done his whole bit about black people, you drive like this, and white people drive like this, and so on and so on and so on. Is observational humor now just off the board? Like we can't make jokes about poor people, we can't make jokes about fat people, we can't make jokes about black people, we can't make jokes about well, no, white people are fine because they're more privileged and therefore they need to be taken down a peg still. And do you think that white people being the only subject for humor will engender any kind of positive or negative feelings, maybe. Like when white people eventually realize that they're the only race that anyone can have an opinion about, do you think anyone's going to have some negative reactions there, you twits? Just throwing that out there.
And I am back after being gone for 5 minutes?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. What did I miss?
I got halfway through with one rant, and then I paused for a bit, and there was actually a second rant in me that I didn't realize.
Okay. Excuse me. Yes, it's root beer. Take a fucking drink, folks.
Drink.
Okay. So it's getting groceries in while also being rained on and wearing flip flops.
Well, I would say it can't get any worse, but I think if I did, it would literally start storming over there.
Just by, because I'm a big believer in the idiots that say it can't get any worse.
Immediately it gets worse. Or another famous one, what could possibly go wrong? Everything. The answer is always everything.
Yeah,
If
the
you
whole
for any moment believe that the answer to what could possibly go wrong is not every conceivable thing, then you are exactly the idiot it's going to happen to.
right. All right. So, where was I? Okay. Yep. Okay. Here we go. Film often most cited. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Okay. The films most often cited as racist, of course, are Birth of a Nation and Song of the South. But the range of problematic films is wide, including Breakfast at Tiffany's. Mickey Rooney's stereotype role as a Japanese man is appalling. West Side Story. Puerto Ricans are shown almost only as gang members. And 1975's slave owner drama Mandingo, jaw-dropping and apparently aimed at the KKK demographic.
Okay, West Side Story, okay, was a version of fucking Romeo and goddamn Juliet that was about gangs. Naturally, the majority of characters in a movie about gangs are going to be gangsters. Does this not register to your brains? It's not saying that every conceivable Puerto Rican in those movies would be not every Puerto Rican is a gangster, but in a movie about gangsters, a considerable number of the people you see in that movie are probably going to be gangsters. Like, Brainstormer, you're a mixed race Hispanic. Are you offended by this portrayal of Puerto Ricans?
I've never even seen West Side Story, but it's just the story of gang members who happen to be Puerto Ricans. I don't really see the fucking problem. Is the thing.
And not even every character in the movie is Puerto Rican. There are just some Puerto Ricans in the movie that happen. Like, some members of the gang just happen to be Puerto Rican. It's not like every member of the gang is Puerto Rican or it's a Puerto Rican gang or something. Birth of a Nation was a literal white supremacist propaganda film, so you got one right, but that being said, the person who made it felt so guilty that his next movie was literally called Intolerance, because he was trying to show how intolerance isn't good. So apparently even the person that made it doesn't support Birth of the Nation anymore. Or alternatively was so fucked in the head that he couldn't see how we shouldn't be intolerant of MK kind of contradicts his previous statement about let's put those blacks back in their place, derp. Either way, every motherfucker in the world knows that Birth of the Nation is bad. Song of the South, as my friend Anglantine over at I Love Comics and Homegrown Tours will tell you, the only mentally competent person in that movie was the black guy. So, how is Song of the South racist? Because it portrays restructionist era South, and it doesn't even portray it for very long. It's literally like Uncle Remus doing his thing on what used to be a plantation is basically a framing device for old school parables, which he himself is telling most of the time. So yeah, the apparently super racist black guy in Song of the South is the only competent person in the movie and also the omnipotent narrator when it came to the storytelling segments. And this somehow was racist.
And Breakfast at Tiffany's, I pulled up like a clip, and I assume I've heard of that. Like I've seen like the images of that character.
I've seen it once, but I don't remember the character they're referring to.
Mr. Miyoshi.
Yeah, I'm betting he was a fairly minor character because I completely don't remember who he is.
I think he's supposed to be like a landlord or something.
Probably. Yeah, let's move forward.
All right. Honestly, I've never, most of these movies I've not heard about or haven't heard about in a very long time. So mainly, I was just more curious if whether or not he was going to bring up anything of like actual mainstream culture.
Mm.
Right. So
He does. I've seen the list a few times.
uh,
Some of these are gonna make you mad.
okay. All films should be viewed with a critical eye, but that doesn't mean banning them.
Interesting question. Do movies that agree with you ideologically and politically need to be assessed with a critical eye? Or do they automatically get a get out of criticism free card because my black people, my women, my gays, etc.? Do I get to criticize Captain Marvel for being a terribly boring, dull movie with an uninteresting character at its center who I want to punch in the face? Or would you come at me with, but it's such a win for feminism, though? Do I get to say how terrible of a remake Ghostbusters 2016 is? Or would you call me sexist and racist for doing so? Like they actually did when people had an issue with Ghostbusters 2016. Do I get to say that the only two good Terminator movies were the first two without you bringing up Terminator Dark Fate and calling me a misogynist?
You know what's funny? I think it could have been good if they like for Terminator Salvation, which I thought was a fairly good movie overall. But if they had stuck with the original ending for that movie,
Which I don't remember off the top of my head. What was that?
okay, so the original ending they had planned for was the hybrid, the human Terminator hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to be given the face of John Connor.
Okay.
But then Skynet switches him to kill everyone in the distance. Kyle Reese, Connor's wife, like John Connor was supposed to die
Mm-hmm.
in the original draft of Salvation,
Mm-hmm.
and kill. Yeah, he's supposed to. And the hybrid is supposed to kill like everyone, even John Connor's father and stuff, and end on that. I believe was original thing.
Hmm.
I think that would have made the Terminator series pretty fucking cool. Like it's something you just don't expect. It's that kind of plot twist that you don't get often nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit like in Blade Runner when I believe it's the director's cut, there's a little red glare at the end in Rick Deckard's eye, showing that he was a replicant, or at least implying that he was a replicant.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen Blade Runner.
You should watch it, but
I
be
know.
warned, it takes like 5 viewings before it all fully sinks in. And it really depends on which
Well,
version of the movie you even watch.
I'm thinking probably the director's cut. Though there is a cut like someone made on YouTube, and you probably check out.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, no, okay, so ironically, I don't disagree with the statement without the context. On its own, it's a good statement.
Which statement?
All films should be viewed with a critical eye, but that doesn't mean banning them.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but it, it very much gets undermined when you realize what they mean by critical eye. They don't mean criticizing
I
art
know
for
I know. That's
meritocratic
why.
purposes. They mean
Go on.
ideologically purifying it from moral and political reasons.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. That's why I said without the context.
Mm-hmm.
These films represent the era in which they were made, and it's important to remember history and human bigotry and insensitivity so that we don't repeat these things. I'm sorry, do you see any fucking uh, in prison camps or.
Okay, and also here's the other thing, and this boils my blood every time this topic comes up. It doesn't matter how much you hammer in that these things are bad if you don't actually look at the context for these things. And I don't mean the overarching woo-woo cultural political context. I mean the reasons that these people, the people that did these terrible things, say that they did them and their rationales for them. Because you people, I swear to fucking God, are just going to march us into a palette swapped version of everything that you hate. And this is the reason why. Brief sidebar on my part here, and I've done this rant a couple times before.
Go ahead.
Brief review of how you get humans to hate, how you get groups of humans to hate other groups of humans. You don't start with, those people are terrible and we should hate them. Those people are terrible and shitty and weak and we should destroy them because they're terrible and shitty and weak. You start with, those people have some privilege that they don't deserve, and their weakness is a result of their moral failings. And then people begin to hate them because people have an innate desire for fairness. They have done studies on fucking monkeys that show that monkeys also have this predisposition. If you train monkeys to do a task, and you give one monkey something valuable to a monkey, like a grape, for that task, and then you give the other monkey who does that same task a generic food biscuit, which is not as tasty to a monkey, the one with the biscuit will flip all kinds of ape shit over it because that's not fair, do you see? The easiest way to convince someone to hate someone else in human beings and in human civilizations is to convince someone that someone has something that they don't deserve, that they haven't earned what they want. Then you come in with the weakness argument, because if you just point out the physical weaknesses of someone or the mental weaknesses of someone or what the fuck ever, actually what you find is people have more empathy for them because we don't like seeing ourselves as the bully. We as humans generally like to see ourselves as the hero fighting for some kind of justice. So if we see someone as vulnerable and we haven't already had a predisposition to hating them, we're going to try and raise them up because we actually respect vulnerability. We respect victims. We want to see people who are victimized helped. This is how healthy human beings work. But if you can be convinced that a person's physical weaknesses or mental weaknesses are the result of moral failings, i.e., this person is weak because they are a bad person, then you can convince someone to hate them. Because the one kind of weakness we don't respect as humans is moral failings, because we respect upstanding character. And if we can be convinced that some other group doesn't have the same character or the same qualities or the same morality we do, then we can hate them. The way that Nazis convinced people to hate the Jews was not the Jews are shitty and weak and we should hate them at first. It was the Jews control the banks and therefore they have too much power, let's equal the playing field. Now, the actual historical reason why the Jews ran the banks was because in many Christian countries, there were laws against people who were Christians charging interest and doing banking and shit. So naturally, as a result, the job of banking fell to people who weren't Christians, namely, a lot of the time, Jews. And because this was the only job that a lot of Jews could get, naturally, over a few years, they got good at it. But the Nazis completely forgot how that happened, and so they thought to themselves, the Jews control the banks because there's this massive Jewish conspiracy everywhere. And then, once people had been convinced that the Jews had something they shouldn't have because they were being unfair about it, then they began with, Jewish vulnerability is just a sign of Jews being morally inferior. You start by convincing your people that the other is privileged, and then you move to the other is morally inferior. That is the order. Never in any of that does it start with they're physically inferior. Physically inferior in this kind of mentality is just an extension of morally inferior, because you can convince people that if someone is morally inferior, them being physically inferior is just a consequence of their actions. This happened in every genocide. It happened with the Jews in Nazi Germany. It happened with the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda. It happened in basically every genocide you have. The easiest way to start getting people to hate other people is by saying, those people over there have something they shouldn't, and we need to balance the scales. By basically saying the Jews have Jewish privilege, the Nazis were able to get people to hate the Jews. And what do you, my dear Tim, say about majority groups, white people, and men? And if the answer is they have privilege and they didn't earn it, then do you perhaps see why I'm going to slowly back the fuck up away from you now? Because if you start telling people those people are privileged and they don't deserve what they have, someone somewhere is going to say, well, if they're privileged and they don't deserve what they have, let's even the playing field by knocking them down a peg. And boom, you will have a genocide. That is how that works. And if you don't take into account the actual rational ways you get from point A to point B, from a person not preferring a genocide to preferring a genocide, you will replicate it. Because if you don't understand why the actual reasoning behind the Nazis' hatred of Jews, for example, then you're just going to do the exact same behavior, but with a different moral MacGuffin this time. Instead of the Jews, it'll be the white people or the men. Because if you don't understand the actual mentality, if you just understand the emotions and the terminology, then you don't understand jack shit about how behavior works. You don't understand how systems work. And if you don't understand a system, then you're probably going to fall into a similar system without even realizing you're doing it.
Again, I point to our previous discussions of parallel universe where it's gender bent.
Yes. If there was a gender reversed universe, and we got somebody from the gender reversed universe to start if we got a meninist from the gender reversed universe to come here and start talking about the matriarchy and how there's a male wage gap because men do less work than women, would you find that to be a credible statement, or would you laugh in their face? I'm betting you would laugh in their face. Well, now do you understand why whenever a feminist brings up the wage gap because men essentially do more work than women and therefore get paid for it, do you understand why we laugh at you at all? Moving on.
Menedness.
Yes, if such a world existed where there were meninists, but being a women's rights advocate was forbidden, would you actually find any of their arguments persuasive, or would you laugh in their face?
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder if there's a quote unquote utopian dimension then, or universe, yes.
I doubt there is one now. I hope at some point we will get our shit figured out and there will be one.
Well, honestly, I don't really trust utopias anyway, so.
Yeah, no, utopias are almost always short-sighted because they're not actually based on how logic or human reasoning works.
Well, it's also that, but almost every utopia always has that dark-seated underbelly to it.
Well, that's why they have the dark-seated underbelly, because they don't understand how human beings work, but they have an idea of how human beings should work. And then when human beings inevitably fail to act in the way that you're supposed to act according to these people, something must be done about the people who aren't doing it right. And then all of a sudden you find it perfectly acceptable to disappear in black bags all the people who aren't humaning correctly.
All right, let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as a start, here are 10 films that need to be presented with disclaimers and discussions before and after a screening. Jesus Christ, I hate that fucking statement already.
What now?
Did I?
What was the statement?
As a start, here are 10 films that need to be presented with disclaimers and discussions before and after a screening.
Okay, if you're going to present a warning label, then the only reasonable place to put it would be before. If you're going to enforce that not only before it there is a warning label, but afterwards people have to talk about it, then you are an authoritarian cunt and can fuck right off.
I don't mind.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's well. I mean, I'll let you get back to your point, but I just want to say discussions after a movie, I think, are good, mainly because people have them anyway. I know I do.
But like doing them by mandate is a whole nother matter. If people willingly choose to talk about something, that's one thing, but going, because you've watched this movie, now you have to talk about its implications, is FUBAR.
Oh yeah, no, that's stupid as hell. I'm just talking like in general discussion.
Yeah, but the thing is, nobody. Generally speaking, you don't have to encourage a discussion if the thing in question is discussion worthy. Discussions will happen because people like discussing shit.
I agree. Anyway, I assume this is number 10. Motherfucker did not number them. Dirty Harry, 1971. Was this one you thought I'd get angry at?
This was one of them that I thought.
I've never seen this movie. I know of it. I know what. I really gotta watch a lot of old movies, honestly.
Yes, you do.
I mean, come on. I haven't seen Blade Runner, so you kind of have to assume I haven't seen Dirty Harry.
And by the way, we never did get a chance to discuss why on God's green earth you haven't seen Blade Runner.
Life.
And right before you got called away by your family member. You said you didn't see something, and I never got a chance to fully react to that either because you got pulled away.
I've never seen, dude. I've never seen. Uh, what was it? Gone with the Wind.
Shame.
You said it was a 3-hour movie. I've never even watched Titanic. That's a 3-hour movie.
Holy fuck.
Plus, it's not a movie I'd be interested in.
Well, I mean, Gone with the Wind has been considered a classic since it came out in the 1930s. So
it's not my kind of movie.
I guess if we ever meet up, one of my jobs is going to be showing you a lot of movies.
Dude, we've already had this discussion many times, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
But the Blade Runner thing, that's because of life.
Yeah, you at least need to fix that one because there's no.
I know. I know it's like I know it's really good. It's one. I don't know which cut to watch. I assume directors, and two, it's very hard to fucking find that movie.
True.
I should have watched it when I had it on Netflix, but god damn it, I waited too long.
Mm-hmm.
Bastards took it off.
There's actually some debate as to which is the better cut, because some people like to think that the main character is a replicant, and some people prefer to think that he's human.
I believe, yeah, I know about that. I know about the story of the movie. I just never watched it. I think I'm of the mindset with, I think it was like the author of the book that Blade Runner is adapted from.
Philip K. Dick, and the book is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Right. I'm just more of the mindset, it doesn't matter if he's a replicant or a human. What matters is that he's an interesting character.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Dirty Harry, Lieutenant Harry Callahan of San Francisco Police Department is determined to uphold the law, even if he has to break the rules. It started a craze for movies with maverick cops who get the job done by following their instincts rather than the law. The film mocks liberal judges and do-gooders, and the villain claims police brutality, planting the seed that other such charges are fake moves to get sympathy. There is a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
And I also, okay, so this came out the 17th, which was like 4 days ago.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that there's a specific reason why he chose a cop movie.
Yeah, because of the current crop of things. But,
yeah.
Okay. False allegations do happen. Okay? False allegations do happen. Just because somebody is determined to be the victim of something, it does not mean that they are unimpeachable and can do no wrong. But just in that one instance, we have confirmation of the thing I was talking about earlier. We like to think of ourselves as defenders of the weak. We like to think of ourselves as the heroes of our own stories. Vulnerability, as long as it doesn't result from some kind of moral failing, is always appealing to humans. And one of the reasons is because as a species, we need to protect children. And children are remarkably vulnerable, especially the first few years of their life. Therefore, anything that constitutes itself vulnerable like a child is something that we inherently want to defend.
Wait a minute. Is this movie rated R?
Yes.
Okay, then why the fuck should it be censored even more? Well, not censored, but given it already has a fucking disclaimer.
Yeah, the actual rating by the MPAA.
Yeah. So that makes
now the standards of the MPAA are fucking stupid. Don't get me wrong. They distinguish between a PG-13 and an R by really arbitrary criteria sometimes. But
Ironically enough, there are actually PG movies that are really fucking dark and violent.
yeah, but given that there is already a rating system in place for such things, as long as the thing in question doesn't, or as long as the thing in question does have a high enough rating by the MPAA, it should, like, okay. The thing is, the rating system of the MPAA was originally meant to deal with this exact problem, more or less. It was originally meant to basically be like sort of like the nutrition facts on the side of a food item. It was supposed to be a marker of this type of movie contains this type of content. If you are sensitive to this kind of content, please find the door. Well, we've already got the MPAA. We don't need any more extraneous disclaimers. Unless you want to update the standard of the MPAA and make it harder for movies with racial content to be rated anything lower than an R. But I'm gonna laugh hysterically when Song of the South, a freaking Disney movie from, I want to say, the 50s, gets bumped up to a rated R because you think it's racist. Even though the black character in it is highly sympathetic and is the main voice of reason throughout the entire goddamn thing.
Right, and I've seen some scenes from Dirty Harry. Like I know about the one with the lady that
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen this clip, so it's. But
Also, it just occurred to me the movie is called Dirty Harry. Why is it called Dirty Harry, I wonder? Because Harry is meant to be depicting a dirty cop, a cop that has gone too far.
well,
So,
I don't think he's technically like a dirty cop because I don't think he takes money from criminals and stuff to keep
well,
quiet.
no, but he's dirty in the sense of breaking the rules and so on and so forth.
He gets
So,
his hands dirty, basically.
yeah, so Tim, in a movie called Dirty Harry, where it's already demonstrated in the title of the piece that the person we are looking at isn't supposed to be a moral exemplar for anything, your argument is because we're supposed to see him as a moral exemplar, we should censor this movie more. No. The movie is called Dirty Harry. That implies the person in question is not supposed to be morally trustworthy, at least not all the way.
Ironically enough, I wrote a character that's like kind of the complete opposite of Dirty Harry.
Hmm.
Well, he's called Super Cop as a derogatory term.
Yeah, that doesn't. Oh, that's right. I remember you telling me about this character.
Yeah. Which, funny enough, because his character arc is to kind of be a lesser degree of Dirty Harry.
To loosen the fuck up.
Pretty much, yeah.
To remove the surgically implanted stick up his ass.
I don't think it's just more of he's a believer in
uncompromising.
Yeah, pretty much. He's uncompromising in the rule of law for most of the part.
Yeah, but okay. So back to my point. Yes, Tim, the movie is called Dirty Harry. That implies that he is a dirty cop, which further implies that we're not supposed to like it. If this were like the morally upstanding adventures of Harry, I can't remember his last name, you would have a point. But
Callahan.
thank you. The morally upstanding adventures of Harry Callahan, you would have a point. But as it happens, the movie labels itself as morally untrustworthy. It's not as though we're supposed to look to Harry Callahan as though he's Karen freaking Murphy from the Dresden Files, who is like the ideal good cop. We're supposed to look at him as like the freeing sort of descent into willful, I don't want to say anarchy, but like willful libertarianism. Like what would we do if we had because the thing about Harry is that his moral code is different from the moral code of the laws that he's inclined to enforce. Therefore, he bends them. Essentially, one of the lessons of Dirty Harry is just because the law says something doesn't mean it's necessarily right, which I would think would be something that you could get on board with, considering that much of your whole argument is how bad the past was culturally and how quote unquote bad for the people that the laws ruled over that the laws were. Surely, in a real life scenario, you would be on the side of Harry insofar as he wasn't a cop. The idea being that laws that are written to protect people sometimes fail to do so, and sometimes the laws are so stringent that they actually impede doing the right thing. So, in short, it's a movie about how laws should be bent as and when they are bad for the people they're supposed to rule over. How the fuck are you not in favor of that? Aside from the fact that it's a cop doing it. A cop who we are not supposed to find is morally upstanding because he's literally called Dirty in the title of this fucking thing.
You know what's weird? And
Go ahead.
again, kind of to bring up the gender bent universe thing. Again, you swap this movie with a female character. You know, Harriet, Dirty Harriet. You know,
Dirty Harriet, yes.
I kind of want to make that movie now for some reason. Anyway, again, I don't think they'd have a problem with this movie if it was a female character. Like, it just, again, you just place the character in. You make the character female, essentially.
In the gender bending machine, and then it's automatically fine. Like, I guarantee you that if we made a modern remake of Dirty Harry starring Betty Gilpin as a Dirty Harriet, it would be hailed as a feminist masterpiece. I can almost guarantee that.
Wait, who?
Betty Gilpin.
I don't.
She was the main character in The Hunt, the badass female.
For some reason, I don't know. For some reason, if I'm picturing like a female Dirty Harriet, I'm thinking Rosario
Dawson.
No, maybe I trying to remember her name. She was in The Mandalorian.
I'm pretty sure that's Rosario Dawson. I think.
Hold on. It's bugging me. Just because she's like.
Alrighty, I will wait for you to Google.
Gina Carraro.
She would be a good choice too. Betty Gilpin was just the first one to spring to my mind because in order to be like the female equivalent of Dirty Harry, you would have to be a character similar to the character that Betty Gilpin played in The Hunt. Also, she's amazing, and she needs to be in more things.
I'll be honest, when I saw the trailer for The Hunt, I thought it was Margot Robbie.
Thank fuck it was not, because I don't even want to know how she would have played that.
You're like a bitch?
Most likely.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, no, again, it's like, just, like, say the script, the script's the same, the side cast the same, but you change it to a female cop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all the same, but it's a female character. For one thing, I'm sure if in our universe,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been seen at the time in 1971 as a quote-unquote big leap forward for feminism in movie history.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it's a good movie simply by its merit.
you know, if there was a female version of Dirty Harry in 1971, I know exactly um who we would get to play. And now I just lost the actress's name. Um, Woman who played not Dana Scully, Dana Barrett in Ghostbusters.
Hold on. Let me look it up. How do you spell Barrett?
I think
Wait, did you say Baron or Barrett?
it's Barrett. It's
Wait, I think I found it. Mm. You talking Sigourney Weaver?
yes, I couldn't for the life of me think of her name, but yeah,
What? How did you forget Sigourney Weaver?
I am ashamed. I am ashamed that the Sigourney Weaver's brain.
Shame. 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 But yeah, honestly, she would have been really cool. Uh, hello? Dawn, if you're talking, I can't hear you. And he disappeared. 1 second, folks. He'll be right back. Why are these streams always such a mess? You'd figure 68th podcast, we get our shit together. That yep. Uh, but but I guess I'll just yeah, no, I overall I don't think okay, so I watched a little bit and I think I know what um they're talking about with the film mocking liberal judges and do-gooders. It's not so much mocking like liberals in general, it's more mocking just those people who think uh, the overall kind of people that are so much better at this than me. But yeah, just those people that kind of just constantly try to undermine or belittle just average everyday folks who are just doing what they think is doing their jobs. Um, that is actually the best I could think of doing. Yeah, this is exactly how I want. Phone?
Sorry, phone fucked up. Anyway,
Yeah, I figured.
back to Dirty Harry. But yes, Sigourney Weaver, I think, would be the perfect.
Oh, wait,
Jet.
where do we, where, right, I was shaming you for forgetting Sigourney Weaver.
Yes, because my brain just decided to completely eject her name from it.
I gotta get a shame, though. I gotta get that.
Yeah, I'm sure on your soundboard somewhere there's a shame button.
Yeah, probably in the 1,000 page or something. Also,
You need to create like shortcuts to all the ones you use most often.
mainly they're on the first page, so. But yeah,
But no, I mean, I mean, you need to go through them all and then like create shortcuts to all the ones you use most often.
I might look into that later. Probably not because I'm lazy, but you know.
Yeah, but anyway, on with the list.
Right. No, I got nothing to say else about Dirty Harry. It's a movie I probably need to see. I actually have not really seen a lot of Clint Eastwood's stuff.
There's a lot of movies you need to see because you would like them if you did.
Probably. All right. So Forrest Gump, 1994. I've seen this. Been a while though. It's just a heartwarming.
Stupidity is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Like I said, I've seen this movie. Been a long time since I've seen it, so I'm a little hazy with the details of it. I know like major things that happen in it, and the overall thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
Though I can't remember for the life of me, I can't remember the theme if it had one. I assume just enjoy life for all it's got.
I don't think it did. I think it was just a feel good story about Forrest Gump. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's whatever. All right, so yeah, Forrest Gump was made by intelligent people, won 6 Oscars, and is beloved by many.
I mean, I think it's slightly overrated especially compared to the year it came out, because it came out in 1994. And it was up against Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption. So clearly that year contained some stiff competition.
I think it's overall just a good movie. You know,
Yeah, it definitely is a feel-good movie. I'm just saying, like, I feel like compared to all the awesome movies that came out that year, it was very much the safe choice.
mm-hmm.
It's kind of like how in modern day Oscars, sometimes the more risky movie that people liked more um was lost out to the safe choice. Kind of like what happened recently with Joker.
I say it once and I'll say it again. Fuck the Oscars.
Agreed.
All right. Well, the film is condescending to anyone with a disability, Vietnam vets, and people with AIDS, among others. What the fuck?
Speaking as a person with a physical disability, I know it's not the same as mental, but speaking as someone with a physical disability, no part of that was condescending to
Wait,
me.
I thought they were talking about Lieutenant Dan.
Well, I imagine they're also talking about Forrest, what with his mental issues. But yeah, no part of Forrest Gump do I consider condescending to me. There's some parts that I consider a bit cringy because Forrest is kind of an idiot, and his idiotic ways make me facepalm repeatedly sometimes. But apart from the fact that the character literally has mental retardation issues, it's a good movie. And it's honestly fairly sympathetic to people with disabilities because the main character has one or two, and so do a lot of people he runs across, and at no point are they like insulting or anything.
Plus, Forrest Gump is just a genuine good guy who just does really whatever he kind of wants, not in a like, narcissistic way, but just in a way that
No, not in a flippant way, but in a way of like he doesn't really know how life works, and yet life just sort of works out for him anyway.
yeah, he's kind of, I don't want to say Dante from Devil May Cry in that regard, just more of he's he's just a genuinely good fellow who just finds himself in situations that he doesn't really put too much thought into because, well, he doesn't really put much thought into anything.
I think in a lot of ways, Forrest Gump is a wish fulfillment character for a lot of people, because we all wish that we got to do amazing things even though we didn't realize we were doing them sometimes.
Yeah, fair.
Because that's the thing about Forrest Gump. Despite the fact that he has no idea what's going on at any point in his life, he always finds a way to make a massive impact on history in sort of a this is what was going on behind the scenes way.
Yeah, although he's not really he's not really influencing a lot of big things. He's just,
But he drops little bits and pieces of influence here and there, and when you take them all together, the world would have been a massively different place without Forrest Gump, apparently.
Yeah.
Like how his dealing with braces inspired Elvis to do his trademark dance, or how he famously said an amazing speech about Vietnam, but through the sheer quiet of not saying anything. And speaking of somebody who had braces as a kid, they are fucking painful. So it doesn't surprise me that he.
Also, you gotta imagine that I think I assume leg braces, right?
Yes.
I'm sure modern standards they've come a long way.
Yes, they have. They're nowhere near as bad as the fucking metal monstrosities that he had to deal with in the movie, but
it was the 1940s, right? I know, like, it goes through the decades. I'm just saying, like, when he was a kid, it's like 1940s.
Okay, that's a good question. I want to say it was the 50s, but
well, he's like a teenage.
Yeah,
he goes to college in the 60s.
That doesn't seem right, because he fought in Vietnam and he was in like his 20s. So yeah, it must have been like the 40s.
Oh, okay, but yeah, it's
if he existed early enough to have an impact on Elvis Presley before Elvis Presley became famous, and he became famous in like the 60s and 70s, then yeah, it must have been.
All right. It's actually hostile to protesters, activists, and the counterculture. The
what in the fresh, piping hot, apple-flavored fuck are you talking about, person?
I'm sorry. Can I bring up like two scenes?
Please.
Okay, so the first scene is where he's in college, mainly on a scholarship. And, the first, can't remember what it was. The first African American kids are going to that, I assume was an all-white college before.
Mm-hmm.
And he picks up a black girl's book that she, dropped. I don't know why that word escaped me for a sec. Anyway, he just treats it like real no big thing. I mean, it's filmed and stuff, and I assume it has a larger impact than you would think, right?
Yes.
He's too stupid to really care about race, because I don't really think he comprehends that.
And it winds up making him a better person. If anything, Forrest Gump is the story about how just kind of going along to get along and not worrying about the details can make you a better person.
Yeah.
And incidentally, do you not remember and that's all I have to say about that speech, the Vietnam speech, that Vietnam that every motherfucking radical or leftist or dissenting opinion in the 60s fought against, and he created a positive riot over his non-speech by basically implying that Vietnam was so horrible it didn't deserve to be said, even though he didn't intend to imply that. At what point in any context are protests or riots of like the 60s taken to mean anything bad?
Right. And okay, so the other scene I was going to bring up was the one where the Black Panther man is not Black Panther as in like the superhero. I'm talking about like the actor.
As in the political organization.
Yeah. Um, he doesn't listen to him, and the guy's just spouting off in his ear. He's paying attention to Jenna because one, he's infatuated with her, and he's just paying attention to her because she seems like she's in trouble with, I assume, kind of like her boyfriend, douchebag guy.
Yes, because on the list of things that Forrest Gump cares about, at the very tip top of that list is Jenny and Jenny's well-being.
Yeah. And honestly, when I first watched that scene, where he kind of gets angry,
which is apparently a really hard thing to do, to get Forrest Gump angry.
But god damn, it was actually kind of terrifying when you think about it.
Yeah.
But no, it's not, and it's not even that he doesn't care about the thing. It's just, again, he's kind of too stupid not to understand it, and I think
what little brain power he has is going to the things that are worth caring about, and for him, the things that are worth caring about include, but are not limited to, Jenny and Jenny's well-being.
Yeah, but also because I think he's just kind of he just sees people as people mostly.
Which, in all fairness, is the appropriate way to view people most of the time.
I mean, and again, his kind of his best friend in Nam was Bubba,
who he then proceeded to go on and start a business with, for fuck's sake.
Well, was going to.
Well, he kind of ended up doing it anyway as like he created a business as like a homage to his friend.
Yeah. But yeah, Bubba was also black, and I assume also kind of slow. I think.
Well, he was smarter than Forrest, but let's be honest, that's not a high bar.
Yeah, I think he was smarter than Forrest. It's just, again, like he wasn't the brightest. So
honestly, I never got that from him. I'd have to watch the movie again, because I thought he was mostly just kind of normal.
Either way, he was kind of Forrest Gump's best friend during Nam.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but no, it doesn't. It's not really against counterculture or anything.
It shows Forrest interacting with counterculture and often inspiring it. How the fuck is that in any way hostile to it?
No. And the Vietnam vets thing, again, Forrest is a vet, and he's just... and
it's not like he had any opposition to going home. He was freaking traumatized by it.
Yeah. And Lieutenant Dan, well, mainly that's just because it was more of a family thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, he had too much of a glorification of war. Mm-hmm. And I think him losing his legs and all being on that ship with Forrest and stuff.
Yeah.
And, when Forrest,
by the way, he's not shown to be sympathetic because he's fetishizing war. He's shown to be an idiot.
Yeah.
And in a movie that literally stars someone who is neurologically incapable of not being an idiot, when a quote unquote a cognitively normal person is shown to be more of an idiot, do you think maybe that might be saying something? the person who is in favor of war is even more stupid than Forrest Gump. That is what the movie is saying.
Right. But what Forrest says when I think at the moment when he kind of puts himself in the ocean for a little bit, makes his peace with God and all that. I think that's where he kind of starts to turn his life around. And I believe he actually falls in love with a Korean woman, as shown at the end of the movie.
I believe so.
Yeah, so, well, not Korean, but
Vietnamese.
yeah. So yeah, I kind of would be interested in seeing that. Oh, fucking helicopter, fuck what? Anyway, I'm kind of interested to see, if they thought about doing a spin-off movie where it was told from the Dan's perspective, see him do that kind of thing.
That would be interesting, but I don't think it would have quite the same appeal.
Yeah, true, but just a thought. Anyway, as a bonus, lovable title character Nathan Brad Bedford Forrest was named after his grandfather, the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
He is not named Nathan Bedford Forrest. He is named Forrest Gump. You are projecting the Nathan Bedford Forrest thing to completely pull that out of your ass.
Also,
at no point in the movie was that even brought up. And I don't think it was even brought up in the book either. Where the fuck are you getting that?
but yeah, no, the last name is taken into Forrest's first name, obviously. But I think there's nothing to show that he was taught to hate her.
There's nothing to show that his mother named him after that person. Or that, Forrest being his first name was an homage to that guy.
It's just that his name's Forrest and he lives in the South. So what? As we previously stated, he does not care about race. He just treats people as people because, one, he's too stupid to really grasp the concept of race, nor do I really think he cares.
Yeah, as long as you're not mean to him, I don't think he gives a shit.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is not an unreasonable standard.
Alright, so, well, I don't know if I should be angry because I haven't seen this movie either. Moving on. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Again, I don't know, I think it's stupid, obviously. I just haven't seen the movie to really have a more emotion, show more kind of emotions.
A more educated opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like I said, I know of the movie. The only movie of Indiana Jones I've seen is Crystal Skull.
That just makes me want to cry for you.
I am fully aware. If it makes you feel any better, like I said, first movie I ever watched, Star Wars, the original Star Wars.
Okay, that somewhat makes up for it, but good goddamn.
I know. Add it to the goddamn list. Anyway, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are genuinely compassionate filmmakers. I feel like there's a but. And there is.
Yes, of course there's a but. And also by whose standards are we deeming them genuinely compassionate?
Because they are kind of dicks with egos.
And what gives you the right to make that determination for your readership?
I don't me or the writer.
No, the writer.
Okay, I want to check.
Yeah, no. By what criteria are you judging them to be such, and what gives you the right to make that determination and spout it for your audience, Tim?
Okay, but this film went a little too far in trying to replicate the mood of 1930s action serials. Like those old movies, the exotic quotations villains are portrayed as primitive and bloodthirsty foreigners, resulting in negative and stereotypical depictions of India and of Hindu customs.
Okay, here's the problem with that whole fucking argument. The Thuggees, the villains in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, are based on a real cult of assassins. They're not meant to just be generic Hindus. They are a actual sect of cult-like assassins from which we actually derive the English word thug. The word in English thug actually comes from Thuggee. So it's not disparaging Hindus or Hinduism. And also, incidentally, the Shankara stones, the MacGuffins in the movie, are based on an actual MacGuffin from Hindu mythology, namely the Shiva Lingan stones, which are said to essentially be the sacred stones blessed by the goddess Shiva. So, from these two things, we can conclude that the writers did at least their fair share of research, and that nothing in the movie is meant to apply to Hindus or Indians or what the fuck ever. It's a specific sect of people that are the villains, and it's a specific MacGuffin that is the MacGuffin of the movie, and it's portrayed fairly positively. So, what the fuck are you playing at, please? No one mentioned Hindus. You are projecting Hindus onto the movie because you want to make a point about Hindus, which is in and of itself kind of problematic, to use your own term. Moving on. And incidentally, if you're going to come at me with, but they talk negatively about Kali, who is a Hindu goddess, then need I remind you that Kali and Shiva are both the destroyer gods in their respective culture. So naturally, a villain would take this destroyer god and warp it out of proportion. Because as any reasonable Hindu can tell you, the purpose of the kind of destructions that Kali and Shiva often do are the cycle of death and rebirth. Essentially, Kali and Shiva destroy things so that new things can grow from the ashes. So naturally, a cult-like leading or a cult-leading fuckhead would take the destructive aspect of Kali and Shiva and leave the rest. But that doesn't mean that those other aspects don't exist. It means that this one lone crazy dude basically took aspects of these deities out of context and misapplied them. And in the movie, he actually gets called out for it. Because, as Indy puts it, you betrayed Shiva. Meaning that he, the white Western archaeologist, knows, at the very least, that that's not how Kali and Shiva prefer to be worshipped in their culture. And he's actually calling out the villain for essentially not reading his own scripture correctly.
Moving on.
So, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I thought you were going to pause and all.
No, it's just it's almost like they didn't even watch the movie. One of the things about the climax of the movie is Indy calling them out for being morons for misappropriating Hinduism, essentially.
Right. Okay, so Me Before You, 2016. This is the least iconic film on the list, but it's worth listening because it's so insensitive. That is literally the first sentence.
Let's have their justifications, as if I don't already know.
Mm-hmm.
This one's going to be special, folks.
Me Before You is a romance about a man, Sam Claflin, who becomes paralyzed after an accident and falls in love with his new companion, Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones. He urges her to live her life to the fullest instead of living half a life with him. So he kills himself, presenting the idea that suicide is better than life with a disability. Don,
Okay,
before you do, may I?
you may.
Okay. You absolute dumb ass motherfucking idiot. That is not. I've never heard of this movie, nor have seen it. But from what I gather, not being a goddamn SJW fuckwit psychopath or just crazy, I guess. I think he just did it because it's a very extreme way of getting the point across. Granted, I don't think it's the right idea, but still. Anyway, don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, speaking as a person with a physical disability, with which I was born, thank you very the fuck much, two things strike me about this movie. Number one, he commits suicide, yes, partly because he is miserable, but also partly because he does not want to be a burden to the woman he loves. And secondly, unlike me, this person, well, there are two things that separate me from the main character in this movie. One is that he's an extrovert who used to like to do dangerous, like daredevil shit. Like he would go skydiving and he would do like Evel Knievel stunts and shit. And two, he wasn't born with his disability. His disability happened to him because he was in an accident. And these two things change things considerably. I have the fortune of being a fairly introverted motherfucker and also to have been born with my disability. Why does that make a difference, you ask? Simple. Because number one, if you were born with the capability to walk around and do all these sorts of things, and then you lose that ability, you have to deal with the consequences of no longer being able to function in the way you've always been able to function. I and people like me who were born with their disabilities don't have to deal with that shit because to us, however we were born is however we were born. We never knew what it was like to like run and jump around and do all that extroverted shit. And two, given that the main character before he was physically disabled lived his life to a ludicrous degree of fullness by doing dangerous shit and thrill seeking, clearly he's not going to be satisfied with the kind of things that I would be satisfied by. I'm happy if I can just sit in my room reading a book or watching a movie or what have you on any given day. But if I was the type of person who wanted to do dangerous, thrilling shit and get my adrenaline pumping, and then I was physically unable to, for whatever reason, that would, in and of itself, be frustrating. It's because the guy in question finds value in doing physically taxing shit that he can no longer do, and he doesn't want to be a burden to the person he loves that he kills himself. That's not saying that all people with disabilities should kill themselves or that life with a disability isn't worth living. It's saying that if you are a person who has a certain set of abilities and then you lose them, that wouldn't be worth living. Like for example, taking this out of the realm of physical disability entirely for a second. If I had like a stroke tomorrow and I lost like 50 IQ points, I don't think I would want to live my life after that. Not because I have any problem with people that have 50 less IQ points than I do or whatever the fuck, or that I think those people are not worth living or yada, 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 but because I'm a very intellectually centered person. I rely heavily on my intellect, and if I didn't have full access to it, I would feel both like a burden on everyone I loved and also like everything I wanted to do in life no longer available to me. And I imagine it's something similar if, say, you were a daredevil or a thrill seeker, and then all of a sudden you couldn't move. I imagine that's a similar set of things. Not because those lifestyles aren't worth living. I don't think that person would judge me for enjoying sitting in my room reading books and shit. But if you're not predisposed to acting that way, and now you're forced to change your life and you don't have the skills you once had, that does change things. Especially if you have to rely on other people. Because I can tell you this from my perspective as a disabled person, one of the hardest things about being disabled is you will always need to rely on other people. Even if you are a loner, like I sometimes am, you will always need help from other people. You will always need assistance from other people. You will always have more problems than other people. And even if you're perfectly okay with that part, there's also this notion of guilt, because you will need to ask for help with things that other people can do without even thinking about it. Like most people, you tell them to get dressed, it takes them what? A minute tops most often. If I wanted to get dressed by myself, it would take me hours. So if I get dressed in a way that I actually want to be dressed, I need help from people. Do you know what it's like to have to ask for help with things that other people take for granted? Do you know how much of a burden that makes you feel like? Because not only are you going to ask for help for reasonable shit that anyone would ask for help for, but you now have to ask for help for things that people take so much for granted that they don't even think of it as something to help you with unless you ask them to. And God forbid you have any other problems on top of that, because you're already asking for more than any person should have to deal with helping you with just by existing. And God forbid you should have any standards or any desires beyond those simple things, because that makes you a burden. And when you're a burden, you start to think to yourself, I really don't want to be this much of a burden to people. Maybe I should just fuck off. Maybe I should just get myself out of their way so that I don't have to make anyone upset with me anymore. That's the mentality that leads this person to eventually commit suicide in the movie. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't do it because I find suicide to be a stupid motherfucking thing, and I've decided that a long time ago. But if I didn't have 24 goddamn years of getting used to being physically disabled, and all of a sudden I was physically disabled, you bet your ass it would be a really appealing option. Especially if I had somebody who loved me that I was making their life more difficult. Because that's the thing. People have their own problems. People have their own desires. People have their own stuff they've got to get on with to make life worth living. And when you have to ask for help for goddamn near everything, you are adding taking care of you onto a person's list of things they have to deal with in life. So now, not only if my house burns down tomorrow for whatever reason, not only does my mom have to worry about getting my brothers and herself out, and probably our animals too and shit, but she has to make sure that I'm physically capable of even getting out of the house. And if if one of my other brothers died because my mom was putting in so much extra effort to get me out of the house because the house was on fire, do you honestly expect that I would be able to live with that? Because I don't think I could live with that if one of my brothers died because I required more effort. Sorry. Just putting the point in full context here. But yeah, it's not saying that being disabled is inherently bad. It's saying that there are complications to being disabled that most people, if they're not born with it or they don't already know how to deal with it, probably wouldn't be able to deal with it at the drop of a hat. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. Um, so we have Ed Brewer here. What's up, Ed? You are correct, but I've never heard that said out loud before. I think he's talking to you, Dalton.
Yeah. One of the benefits of being me is being as I'm physically disabled, I have a lot of time to think, and I have a lot of capability to think. So I've spent a lot of my life working out things that people probably wouldn't even think about.
Okay. So moving on, unless we have anything else to say about. Um,
No, it's just I needed to get it through this person's thick head that it's not saying bad things about disabled people. It's saying that, dear God, how would any normal person deal with being disabled after being able to function normally all their life? Because I've had 24 years to get used to it, and it still fucking sucks sometimes.
excuse me.
Go ahead.
Right. So next movie is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 2019. Didn't see this one.
It's not one of Tarantino's better movies, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it didn't really grab me when I saw the trailers.
It's basically him fanboying over how awesome old Hollywood was for 2 hours.
All right. Quentin Tarantino is adored by cinephiles, and stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are charismatic and talented. Uh, yeah, I will
Yep.
agree more on the first half though, because I'm more of a Tarantino fan than actors fan.
Yep.
Um, so it's easy to overlook the film's regressive messages.
It's depicting old Hollywood. It's not saying that old Hollywood did nothing wrong. If it were saying that old Hollywood did nothing wrong, it probably would whitewash them entirely. And you'd have an issue with that too, wouldn't you, you stupid fuck? By pointing out that those things happened, it's making commentary on the fact that those things happened. And by making commentary on the fact that those things happened, it's acknowledging that there was something wrong or something incongruous about those things happening.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys know what happened to the guy who did Citizen Kane, right?
Yes.
Don't you please refresh those who don't.
Which specific thing that happened to him are you talking about, though?
Mainly how he got fucked over is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that befell Orson Welles. He's one of the most long-suffering contributors to old Hollywood there were. He was almost sued over doing a radio production of War of the Worlds once because a bunch of people got it in their heads that it was entirely real, and they went out and destroyed a bunch of shit.
I thought he got fucked over because he was like new talent and was kind of trying to change like the face of Hollywood in a way.
Well, yes, that there was also that, but like I said, there's a lot of ways in which Orson Welles got fucked over.
Actually, Dilcock said it best, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he was comparing Orson Welles to like Seth MacFarlane when it came to like the Orville being trashed by certain critics.
And that might be a little bit too charitable to Seth MacFarlane to compare him to Orson Welles, but
It's not that. It's more on how they were treated.
Yeah, it's the same situation. I know. I'm just saying, like, what has the world come to when we're comparing Seth MacFarlane to Orson Welles?
Well, I mean, compared to the shit we get these days in entertainment.
Yeah, I'll gladly take the ghost of Orson Welles over basically anyone working in Hollywood today.
Right, okay, so where was I? It's about two middle-aged white guys who long for the old days in Hollywood. In other words, make Hollywood great again.
And in that movie, many of the things that they imagine are things that we know to be wrong with old Hollywood.
No.
Just because the characters were oblivious to that fact does not mean that the audience is meant to be. We're not meant to side with their depictions. We're meant to venerate the awesome shit about old Hollywood, yes, but if they didn't want to acknowledge the bad shit about old Hollywood, they wouldn't have brought it up at all. It's meant the bad things that old Hollywood did are meant to contrast with the overblown, hyped expectations of old Hollywood that these people have. If anything, it's Tarantino trying to write a love letter to old Hollywood and getting a guilty conscience. And who, I wonder, convinced him to be guilty about how old Hollywood was? Could it be his rich, pampered, spoiled prig artist friends that don't let any veneration of the past happen without 1,001 Hail Marys of, I'm sorry that the past happened first? Moving on.
Yep. The film is set in 1969, when some Americans felt the status quo was being threatened by minorities, hippies, and newly liberated women.
Yes, the old guard film press are a bunch of idiots, aren't they? Do you
No.
think that's changed at all? Or would you like to view just how the establishment reacted to Joker and basically the entire comic book genre for the last 10 years or so? Because it seems that the old guard still has their head up their ass.
So Ed Brewer says Seth plays better with others, studio heads, I mean.
This is true. Much as we love Orson Welles was an uncompromising dickhead a lot of the time. And Hollywood is better for him being an uncompromising dickhead, but still. Orson Welles is probably not the guy you wanted to play poker against, is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
He was very much the Thomas Edison of the film world, in the sense that Thomas Edison was an asshole.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, I have root beer. Everyone take a goddamn drink.
Yes, drink.
All right. Ed Brewer says that pesky past always making trouble for us in the present.
It seems that way, yes.
Yeah. Actually, I got nothing to say on that. You pretty much covered everything. So moving on. Yeah. From the controversial depiction of Bruce Lee, one of Hollywood's rare Asian stars.
I don't remember what was particularly controversial about the depiction of Bruce Lee in that movie.
I haven't seen it. So
That's not to say there wasn't anything controversial about the depiction in that movie. I'm just saying I forget because I think it was basically a glorified cameo in that movie. It was like he was there for a few minutes.
okay, and that's you can't focus on like major actors when you have basically. I assume they're like technically original characters that are just put in this world.
Kind of. It's more like an exaggeration of existing things, but kind of.
But Pitts and DiCaprio's characters.
I don't know if they were based on anyone real. Someone more well versed in history will have to do some researching on that.
Right. Okay. One of Holly. Oh, I read that. To the fact that black people seem non-existent.
Well, it was old Hollywood. Would you like them to jam black people in there when they weren't? Or would you like them to jam Hollywood, or would you like them to jam black people in there when they weren't, just to do a victimhood narrative? I'm betting it's that second option, because that sweet, sweet victimhood.
Right. Again, it's like the civil rights movement was kind of well, not. It wasn't close to coming. No, what I think it was actually right. Like it was close to its end.
Yeah, it was working on
Right,
things.
but again, like things take time, and I would assume more than often it was more the TV stations that were willing to give uh, at that time to give black people and various different other people like uh,
It's not like there were no black roles, because like we said, the one who played I believe it was Mammy in Gone with the Wind, was the first black woman to win an Oscar. Um, it's just that the roles that black people played were often kind of stereotypical, or they
mhm,
were supporting characters or minor characters.
yeah. Um, sorry, eating pizza.
Ah,
And the in air quotes the Mexicans, as they're called in the film, are car valets or waitresses.
well, sure, when people first get to Hollywood, they're often put in service roles. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean they're not going to go places. It just means Hollywood basically sucks for everyone when they first get there, because you have to prove yourself above and beyond the call of duty to even get noticed in Hollywood.
which is why I'm more interested in the indie department than anything,
Hmm.
for the most part.
Yeah. But you never know. You might make something that ends up getting you discovered.
I mean, look at Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked. It worked for Kevin Smith. Though, let's be honest, Kevin Smith probably shouldn't be your career template,
So
because he kind of had quite a few run-ins with drug issues because of how much he likes to get high.
ah, okay. Um, I was more talking on like his actual career, not more.
Hmm.
Anyway, Ahsoka Tano Gaming is here with us. What's up? Um, oh fuck me, we're still on the first goddamn article.
There's a lot of stupid herein contained.
We might have to save the last of this for next week.
Maybe.
Yeah. Also, she is eating cake.
Let them eat cake.
All right, calm down, Marie Antoinette.
Well done. You got the reference. What kind of cake is it, Ahsoka? Now I'm just curious.
Part of me thinks carrot cake. I don't know why. Just
Carrot cake is delicious.
I was craving carrot cake earlier.
I can understand why. It is extremely tasty.
Um, but yeah. What was I? Also, as technically Mexican, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm a lot of things, but
Yeah,
Mexican.
he's a mixed race Hispanic.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you need chocolate double layered Oreo cake. Ahsoka says.
Hmm.
That just sounds like too much chocolate for me. You know.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of chocolate cake. I know, blasphemy, but
And I
yeah.
don't like that. I don't like chocolate that much either.
I like chocolate by itself, but when it gets mixed into things, it loses its charm a lot. Like I like brownies, but I don't like chocolate cake.
Ed Brewer says, I need milk.
Yum.
I can't remember the last time I drank milk.
That's funny because I can drink probably about a half a gallon of milk a day.
Right. Okay, so, but yeah, no, as it's just anyone really fills the kind of service positions. And like Dalton said, when you go to Hollywood, you kind of have to start there.
There's a reason why the term just getting discovered is a thing, because if you don't get discovered, you basically languish in obscurity until you do get discovered. That's how Hollywood works. Everyone is working to the highest possible standard they can get to. And therefore, for everyone in Hollywood, it sucks until it doesn't anymore.
Although,
Until you can afford the proverbial blackjack and hookers, everything sucks in Hollywood.
yeah. Well, it's got to be pretty damn annoying for like directors and producers and agents and stuff who are just trying to get something to eat or just try and chill in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You constantly have like people trying to sell them their headshots or like scripts and stuff.
Yeah. Like stopping them in the elevator. Can I pitch you my script or my story or whatever the fuck? Which is also probably why directors and producers in Hollywood have a tendency to be considered short-tempered. Because probably about the 500th time a day that happens, you're going to blow up at somebody.
Which is why I would probably, if I was a director, I'd probably have a very seclusive kind of life.
Yeah, don't call us, we'll call you.
Pretty much. All right, so where was I? Tarantino's film seems to have several blind spots, and Charles Manson's white supremacist agenda is ignored.
Charles Manson was a crazy person. He had no particular hatred for white people. He had a particular hatred for anyone who pissed him off. Because he was a murderous fruitcake.
Yep. I don't even think he really held ideals of Nazism. He just carved that because he wanted to. He carved the swastika into his forehead because he wanted to.
He was being an edgy twit and also a violent sociopath. That does happen without ideology sometimes. If you happen to be a crazy fucker.
Right. I mean, look at the Joker.
Charles Manson, per se.
No. Alright, moving on from that. Oops. I got nothing really to say about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because again, I have not seen it. So
yeah, I've only seen it a couple of times. Like I said, it's not Tarantino's best work.
All right. So, The Children's Hour, 1961. Based on a play by liberal activist Lillian Hellman, this drama tackled a once taboo subject. You ever heard of this one?
Not. I've heard of it, but not in a way that means I know anything about it.
Okay. Excuse me.
Bless you.
That was not a sneeze. That was a hiccuped and burped.
Ah.
Kind of at once.
Ah.
God, that kind of hurt.
It happens.
Yeah. All right. So, two teachers, Shirley MacLaine and Audrey Hepburn, are horrified when a bratty student accuses them of being lesbians. Okay, 1961. It's very illegal to be gay. Well, not legal, but, well,
it was social suicide if anyone found out you were gay, and that's probably more the issue than them hating themselves or anything. It's more just if we get caught, we're screwed.
Yeah. It's still fucked up. It's wrong.
Yes, it most assuredly is, but they're not objecting on moral grounds. They're objecting on please don't fucking destroy our reputation grounds.
Yeah. I mean, again, these are teachers that I assume were, and since it's like say brownish student, I assume kind of a child, and parents like those really fucking like evangelists, those really crazy parents that
The Helen Lovejoys of 1961.
right. They're again, it's just like their lives in that time period would be over.
Mm-hmm. Though, let's be fair, given that they're lesbians, they probably would get off much more leniently than two gay teachers would.
Yep.
Two gay teachers probably would have been fucking lynched, but two lesbian ones probably would have just been shamed and fired for the rest of their lives. Which is still bad, but given the choice between being shamed and fired for the rest of my life or beaten the shit out of, I will take the first option.
Okay, so Ed Brewer says root beer is worth it. Here. And even Liberace and Elton John had to hide in the day. Yeah, I mean.
Well, hide in quotation marks, because I think everybody knew on some level what was going on there.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Most of the homophobia was more about public order and public disgrace than it was about actually being homophobic. Like everyone mostly knew that Liberace and Elton John were that way inclined, but as long as they didn't bring it up or didn't draw attention to it, it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knew and nobody really cared on an informal level anyway.
The contradictory nature of being assholes.
Yeah.
Anyway. Eventually, one of the teachers weepingly confesses that she does have lesbian feelings and then does something that's presented as inevitable. She kills herself. What the? Who the fuck writes this kind of shit? I mean, granted, it's an interesting way to take it, and it's a dark-ass ending, I'm sure.
Presented as inevitable. You mean it was built up with her character arc? Probably.
We haven't seen this movie. I'm not even heard of this movie.
Yeah, no, me either, really. But I suspect what he's getting at is it was built up that this would happen, and that somehow translates to it being inevitable. What?
Oh, okay. Look, some people, I won't lie, there were probably people who did this because they felt like they had no other choice. Because back in those times, like, what was it, 50 or so years ago? Longer?
Probably closer to 70 now.
Right. Okay, 70 or so years. Practically 100 years ago. If you were found out as gay, or
if you were a man, you would be killed or beaten the shit out of, and if you were a woman, your social life was over.
Right. Both are fucking bad. Granted, one is more extreme than the other, but still. Both are fucked. Both end badly for the parties involved.
Yeah.
And just the whole thing is essentially, I'm sure there were people who did that just because they wouldn't handle it, the issues that came from it when they were exposed.
And I'm sure there were a lot of people who became even more stridently against gays just to hide the fact that they were gay.
Right, and that's a sad fucking thing, but it's a reality of life that it happened.
And it is an interesting character arc.
Right.
So naturally, stories are going to get told about it being a serious character arc.
again, it honestly, it probably should not have happened that way. If we're talking in like kind of a real sense kind of deal.
Yeah.
But for a storytelling standpoint, it's an interesting way to take it.
Also, I just want to point this out. Were the characters were the lesbian characters portrayed sympathetically in this movie? And if they were the main characters, if they were supposed to be sympathized with, then that means that someone in Hollywood, even back in 1960 freaking one, thought that gay characters deserved sympathy instead of ridicule. Because if they were ridiculed, or if they were supposed to be evil, they would be presented as the villains trying to get away with something bad rather than sympathetic people trying to get away with something they shouldn't be persecuted for. Because when people genuinely don't approve of something, if they reference it at all, they reference it in the form of the villains. But if you make a movie about two women that is sympathetic to them being lovers, then it at least implies that someone somewhere in Hollywood is being sympathetic to gaydom. Otherwise, they'd be the villains.
So, well, yeah. So after this one and the next one, we're gonna call it for this article and then move on.
Okay.
And also, don't I think the one we were going to cover next, which was the Looney Tunes one, we're going to have to wait till next week and just do the last two.
Okay.
Okay, so the film set the tone for depictions of LGBT people for decades, showing them as self-loathing, pitiable, and perverted. I honestly don't believe him, but I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really say anything.
Yeah, I'm betting there's some kind of misrepresentation there.
Yeah. Which is probably
I'm
why.
I'm betting they were portrayed as the victim. And as we just went over again, when something or somebody is portrayed as weak and vulnerable, unless it's presented as a moral failing, people genuinely find that more sympathetic because people like protecting people who are vulnerable. No one wants to hurt people that can't fight back unless they genuinely consider whatever it is they're doing to be a moral failing. Because the only weakness that we don't respect as a society is the moral kind. If if you are weak of character and you are a bad person, then we don't care. So the only way to get people to persecute people who are weaker than them is to convince them that that weakness is in some way a moral failing, that it makes them a bad person that they're that weak. And how often does that happen ever in stories, especially? Because it's not often unless we're talking about propaganda. Generally, if you want somebody to be seen as
Don't
sympathetic, you make them vulnerable.
you're a little.
Go ahead.
You might want to get close to the mic, bud.
Okay, better.
Yeah, you sounded like you sounded both muffled and also like quiet.
Drifting. Okay.
Yeah.
Point I was making is if these characters are portrayed as vulnerable, then that is an attempt to make them sympathetic. Because human beings, generally speaking, do not like to be on the opposite side of the vulnerable. We have empathy as a species. The only kind of weakness that we don't respect as a civilization is moral weakness. And the only way to convince people that some other kind of weakness is bad is to convince them that it's the result of a moral weakness. I.e., if you're gay because you're a bad person, then it becomes acceptable to hate gay people. But if you're presenting a gay person as weak, that usually is an attempt in that story to make that gay person more sympathetic. Because we like to defend things that are vulnerable. We don't like to hurt things that are vulnerable because people understand that hurting people more vulnerable than you makes you a dickhead. Unless you have good reason. Moving on. You there, Brainstormer? I can't hear you.
Sorry, had to disappear real quick. Anyway, Silvertongue Gaming says, yeah, I've seen the movie, and they are pictured as vulnerable.
There we go.
Also,
vulnerable is a shorthand in movies, especially for pure, because the people that are the villains usually are depicted as more powerful than the vulnerable people, and then misusing their power. Because again, the only type of weakness we don't respect is moral weakness, and the only way to make a other kind of weakness look bad is by convincing people that it's a side effect of moral weakness or caused by moral weakness. Moving on.
Right, also, Ahsoka, you misspelled vulnerable.
Ah. Moving forward, I suppose.
Sorry, it's the grammar thing.
Yes, the grammar Stasi, I know.
So, The Searchers, 1956. John Wayne plays a Civil War veteran on the Confederate side who goes on a 5-year search for his niece who was kidnapped by the Comanches.
And
Wayne's character, Ethan Edwards, is an unapologetic racist who sees all Native Americans as less than human. Okay, if I remember correctly, there's well, for one thing, Confederate side doesn't technically mean racist.
But by itself, no.
Yeah. That was more just they wanted, if I remember correctly, the Confederation. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Confederacy.
Thank you. Don't fail me now, social studies class.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Confederacy simply did not want their rights influenced. Not influenced.
Okay. The shorter way to put this is a lot of people in the South were convinced that if they abolished slavery, it would crash their economy because they couldn't conceive of something to replace the slaves. So a lot of people who fought for the Confederacy didn't do so because they hated any black people, because you didn't have to be black to be a slave. They did so because without a slave class to do the work we don't want to do, the economy would collapse, essentially.
Which
That
basically
was most often the rationale. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of back up your thing is that basically the African countries did that a lot. With
slavery was first on record in freaking ancient Sumeria and Babylon, and those people were Middle Eastern. So don't go telling me this whole it was always about race and always about power dynamics between races, because generally you became a slave if you lost a conflict, if you lost a war. The people who won the war would conquer you and would take a significant proportion of you and turn you into slaves. Romans and Greeks did this to each other. People in the British Isles did this to each other. And of course, people in Africa did this to each other. it wasn't until the other races interacted with each other that the very concept of owning a person of another race became in any way significant. And also, there were Irish slaves who also didn't get their freedom until after the Emancipation Proclamation.
Mm. Edinburgh says it did end, it didn't crash.
Yes, they were very obviously wrong. We found things to replace the manpower of the slaves, thank God. But
Granted, I think there was a solution by finding some sort of not middle ground, but it just feels like the North and the South were very much
yeah,
the
collapsing the country over this was probably not necessary, but it happened anyway.
the whole extremes thing.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Anyway, but yeah, no, the at that time, so a veteran. So this was after the 1860s. 1860s.
Mm-hmm.
The Native Americans who were kind of pushed to, I believe, the east coast of these states at the time.
Well, out of the East Coast and into
Right, the
the
west coast. The west coast. I
yeah.
told brain fart there.
Mm-hmm.
But they, I mean, there were bad Native Americans as well, that would constantly raid and pillage and attack people just because.
Yeah, that doesn't excuse the Trail of Tears, mind you, but
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, again, honestly, when you really look, when you kind of get out and like look at the larger picture, it's all very kind of gray in sense
yeah,
of the world.
the past sucked for everybody on some level.
Yep.
Everybody at some point was enslaved by somebody else. Everybody at some point was genocided by somebody else. Everybody at some point was killed without reason by somebody else because the past just hadn't done the philosophical work necessary to figure out, oh shit, we shouldn't do this to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, people are stupid and incredibly just honestly
Yes.
just violent.
Yes. And we will find basically any outlet for that violence that our civilization can offer us.
Right. And we say animals are stupid.
Yeah, usually animals do things to survive or to maintain dominance or to not die of starvation, but human beings do things for weird, abstract, ideological woo shit.
Yeah. Okay, so back to where we were. Revered director John Ford created a physically beautiful film that has inspired an ongoing debate. Fans see Searchers as a sober study of bigotry. Detractors say it's impossible to overlook the fact that Native Americans are depicted as savage or comical. Whatever you think, Searchers is the epitome of a problematic film and should be screened with discussions.
Okay. Once again, I have this issue. In the movie, I believe John Wayne's character is framed as being in the wrong, even though the villains took his child. He eventually comes to learn that he was in the wrong to think that about them, doesn't he? So you're taking a movie that is explicitly anti-racism or anti-bigotry, and you're projecting bigotry onto it. Do you not see how that's kind of backwards? If a movie says bigotry is wrong and you go, even just talking about bigotry is bad, stop talking about it, do you see how you're not helping in that situation?
But yeah, so that's where we're going to end with this article. There's still more to cover. We'll cover that next week.
Yeah.
Give me a second to pull up next article. So yeah, for time constraints, we are unfortunately going to have to cut.
Yeah, we're going to move the second article, which would have been a follow-up to last week's article about Looney Tunes, to next week. So if anyone wants to see us be very, very quiet and hunt stupid, they're gonna have to wait till next week, or look at the article we talked about last week where we talked about it.
Yeah, that would be Podcast of the Storm number 67.
And Jesus Christ, it's been 67 shows already.
Now 68.
Pretty soon
Anyway.
we'll be at 70.
Oh my god. God, 100 is going to be weird as hell.
Yeah.
Alright, so the next one is, well, it's kind of it's just to kind of help us palate cleanse from the stupid.
Yeah, get the stupidity exposure out of our system for a minute.
Right. Okay, so this is from Geek Tyrant. Ewan McGregor is voicing Jiminy Cricket in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. This was published 5 days ago by Joey Parr.
I had heard that Tim Burton was going to be doing Pinocchio. I'm honestly grateful that they changed to Guillermo del Toro. Because Tim Burton he used to be one of my favorite directors, but he has been slipping lately.
Okay, so just check the comments first. Ed Brewer says, until next time then. Alright, see you, bud. Alright,
Yep.
so it's continue with the article. It's been a while since we've had an update on Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio movie, which he's making with the Jim Henson Company for Netflix.
Oh, it's not the Disney one. So is the Tim Burton Pinocchio still happening? The live action remake?
I don't know. I didn't even know there was one.
Honestly, I'm more happy about the idea of a Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio.
Right, so, Ed Brewer's still with us. Okay, that's not bad. All right, so it's okay. For one thing, he's working with Jim Henson Company, which is pretty fucking cool.
Yes.
Although,
and can we just talk about how awesome it is that Guillermo del Toro and Jim Henson Company are working together on anything? They don't even care that it's a rendition of Pinocchio, even though that's cool in of itself. But Jim Henson plus Guillermo del Toro. To quote the movie History of Violence, how do you fuck that up? Hopefully they don't.
all right, so there was actually a show on Sci-Fi where they it's like Jim Henson's workshop.
Yeah, I remember. It was often on after Face Off.
2 good shows actually.
Yeah, every like documentary show that that Sci-Fi had was really good back then.
I don't know what the fuck happened to those shows.
Why aren't there any more seasons of Face Off? This I do actually want to know.
Yeah, and there was only like 1 season of Jim Henson's company.
I was gonna say, because there were like 14 of Face Off.
Yeah, I used to watch that with my family, like Face Off.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, during a recent interview with ACE Universe, Ewan McGregor revealed that he is going to be providing the voice of Jiminy Cricket in the film. The charming Cricket acts as Pinocchio's conscience in the story.
Yeah.
Well, that is cool. I just hope he doesn't fuck it up so much like Birds of Prey.
Or like he did with Lemure in the live action Beauty and the Beast.
He was in that movie?
Yeah, he was Lemure.
Oh. Well, to be fair, I haven't watched the live action one, so.
And he hadn't watched the animated one before he took the role.
The fuck?
I know.
Actually, he was in his 20s when he was I think he was in his 20s when he was in the prequels. So
Yeah, and then before that, he was in Train Spotting. So, but still, how did he? How did he make it to? How did he make it to his like? I think he's in his 40s now, without ever watching Beauty and the Beast. And
question.
more importantly, why did he accept the role of Lumiere without at least watching the animated one first?
It was a Disney role, bound to get money.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, um, yeah, McGregor said that before the pandemic hit, he had already recorded some of the dialogue for the film. He also teased that there may or may not be a song that has been recorded. Here is the full quote.
When you wish upon a star.
Nothing happens.
Well, it does if you do it right, but most people don't know how to do it right.
Also, if you don't know where that comes from, it's actually a thing. Like it's actually a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just type up "When You Wish Upon a Star" Vine. If anyone remembers Vine, good for you. It was like TikTok, but it's actually funny.
Yeah, but it's oh, the song is originally from the original Pinocchio, and Jiminy sings it. That's why I referenced it.
That is why I referenced.
The Vine, yes.
Yep. All right, I'm playing Jiminy Cricket in Guillermo del Toro's version of Pinocchio. That I had started working on before I left for New York, so some of that is recorded. And of course, it's stop motion, animated, so it's going to take them a great long time to make that film. But my first part, which is recording his dialogue, is sort of done.
Okay, so wait a minute. Jim Henson stop motion created by Guillermo del Toro. Where has this been all my life?
I mean, Guillermo del Toro has already worked on animated stuff, so.
Right, but yeah, because he did the Book of Life, which was a really good movie actually.
I was also referring Troll Hunters.
Yeah, but Guillermo del Toro, Jim Henson stop motion. What I just my mind boggles. That there's just too much awesome in those words.
Oh, dude, imagine if it's like kind of. I mean, imagine if it's the people who worked on Dark Crystal Age of Resistance.
Doing stop motion Pinocchio directed by Guillermo del Toro. I think my brain just broke.
Oh, hey, look, your brain broke not on something stupid.
Yeah, that's the first time in a long time that my brain has broke because of positive.
Is it
Holy
weird?
thought.
I think it's weird.
It's a bit weird, yeah.
Yeah. All right. McGregor is a solid choice to take on the role of Cricket. He's going to be great. While previously talking about the film and the story, Del Toro said, "In our story, Pinocchio is an innocent soul with an uncaring father who gets lost in a world he cannot comprehend. He embarks on an extraordinary journey that leaves him with a deep understanding of his father and the real world. I've wanted to make this movie for as long as I can remember."
They're making Geppetto an abusive dad. Like I'm sure it will be amazing. Guillermo del Toro, for fuck's sake. And whenever Guillermo del Toro gets on one of his passion projects, you sit back in awe and wonder how he did it.
I still need to watch Shape of Water.
Yes, you do. You definitely need to.
I wanted to, but I never got the chance to watch it. My life was like crazy back then because I was still in school. I had family.
I will find it for you and send it to you somehow.
I mean, I can always find it on demand or something.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I don't like the idea of Geppetto being abusive to Pinocchio. That sort of defeats the whole purpose of the thing.
I'm fine, by the way. That I dropped the stick.
Yeah. The whole point of Pinocchio is that Geppetto's want for a son is what brings him to life in the first place. Or what calls the Blue Fairy to bring him to life in the first place.
Okay. So, moving on. Whew, damn it. We previously shared that the film is not going to be a family-friendly version of the story. The filmmaker also discussed his Pinocchio film and compared it to Frankenstein and described it as a brutalist fable. So essentially just a grim fairy tale.
Yeah, basically, he's taking it back to its grim fairy tale roots, and I'm okay with that. Side note, in the original version, the Blue Fairy was referred to as the fairy with the turquoise hair.
I mean, it's Guillermo del Toro. I think he's going to pay attention to the lore.
I'm almost certain of it. It just that's always been a funny side note for me.
All right, so question for you, and this is a little side. This is us going on a tangent. I say
Right.
tangent, or is it like a sidebar? Sidebar.
Yeah,
I forgot the word for a second. But you're knowledgeable of fairies, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to guess, the fairy with the turquoise hair.
Yeah.
Is there anyone in the lore that can match that description? Specifically, one who could bring things to life.
Actually, there's an encyclopedia of fairies that I own that mentions the Blue Fairy. So, yes, there is a fairy that is approximate to her. Whether she has the ability to animate things, I couldn't tell you, and I'm not good enough with evocation yet to just summon her and ask. And I probably wouldn't even if I did, because I'm not sure if she's Seelie or unseelie Fae. And I would imagine she's probably Seelie Fae, because she's the sort of fairy that brings things to life, and that's generally considered a positive thing. But I'm not taking that chance, especially because kelpies are also referred to as having like seaweed colored hair a lot of the time, and they are not. Bless you.
Thank you. I think I taste blood.
Yeah.
I think I bit my tongue when I sneezed.
Hmm?
I think I bit my tongue when I sneezed.
Ooh, I hate that.
Anyway. Oh, hey. Disney is producing a Percy Jackson series for Disney Plus.
I hope it's better than Artemis Fowl, is all I can say.
Probably not.
I'm sorry if the Percy Jackson series ends up as bad or worse than the movies.
You know what I think is going to happen?
Hmm.
SJWism. So much SJWism.
Well, I mean, didn't in the books they basically implied that Percy's ADD was a Greek superpower. So it's not like it's unprecedented.
I don't really think that's what I'm talking about, SJWism. I'm talking more making Annabeth the main star while Percy's just along for the ride.
Basically turning Percy into Ron from Harry Potter.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, probably could see that. But then again, like I said, there's plenty of wiggle room for that kind of. My thinking is they might make Percy black.
Okay. If it's because the actor is good, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. It's little changes like that I don't mind. It's more of if it's very much intentional.
Yeah.
Anyway, to me, Pinocchio, very much like Frankenstein, is a blank canvas in which learning the curve of what the world is and what being human is are very attractive to do as a story.
Well, I mean, I can see where he's coming from with that. I never would have thought to go this dark with Pinocchio, but then again, knowing what I know about the original is oof.
Uh, I'm very attracted to it because thematically, and I don't want to spoil what the movie's about. It's about something that is in all of my movies, which is choice. That's a theme that is very dear to my heart. I think earlier versions of the story and Collodies in particular are very repressive.
Pinocchio is repressive. I'm sorry, Guillermo, you lost me a bit. I'm along for the ride because you've never made a movie that I didn't like, but still, I have a lot of like anime style question marks above my head right now.
Mine's more of uh, comic, more like the comic kind of ones.
Mm.
Well, no, it's like Spider-Man, like Spider Sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's essentially a very brutalist fable about a sin, what a sin disobedience is.
Oh, I really, Guillermo, really. So you're making Geppetto abusive so that when Pinocchio defies him, we're supposed to root for him instead of realizing that like talking to strangers and wasting your life outside of school and stuff isn't good. What?
And I think disobedience is the beginning of the will and the beginning of choice. I think
Okay,
there's
I can agree with him on some level because there's nothing more restrictive than an authority figure that says because I said so. But at the same time, you're kind of changing the entire character of the story now, Guillermo. Because the whole point of Pinocchio is in order to become a real boy, he has to become a good functional person. It's a story about what it takes to become a proper human being, a well-rounded human being, a self-actualized human being. What it takes to it's essentially the difference between being a person and being a good person. That's what on a meta level what Pinocchio is about. So I don't see anything necessarily wrong with that. But I get the anti-establishment impulse he has because I have a similar impulse, but in this case, it might be worth it to just if he doesn't want to put a moral spin on it, then he doesn't have to. But it should still be about what it takes to be a functional person.
thank you.
No, go ahead.
I think there's something that's very attractive about seeing disobedience as a virtue, or as the beginning of a virtue.
Again, I can sort of see where he's coming from, but this might not be the story to do it with.
Maybe Frankenstein.
No, because Frankenstein is a tragic story.
Hmm. Bless you.
because in the story of Frankenstein, the actual book, the doctor's goal is essentially to create the perfect human being. And the tragic thing is he kind of succeeds to create like the Platonic ideal of a human being, but he can't see beyond the fact the monster is ugly. So despite the fact the monster has all these virtues, the fact the monster is noble, the fact the monster is pure, the fact the monster is intelligent, he can't see beyond the monster's outward ugliness, even though in a lot of cases his ugliness comes from the fact that he's bigger and faster and stronger than most other people, which in and of itself is essentially creating a better version of humanity, which was his goal all along. And it's a commentary about how we often make assumptions from the get-go and don't dig deeper. Had the doctor in Frankenstein actually loved the monster, he would have gotten everything he wanted. But because he couldn't see beyond the monster being monstrous looking, one of the most noble beings ever to be created, it was turned into a villain. So I don't know it. I don't know as that story would be the best to twist into a story about free will either. I mean, I could see it working better because the doctor in Frankenstein is actually a dick. And side note to anyone who always does the whole hipster thing of Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster. Number one, the doctor originally referred to the monster as his son, and there are frequent cases where the monster refers to the doctor as father. And in extra-canonical material, the doctor sometimes ends up referring to the monster as Adam, as a play on like the first man in the Bible. So it's perfectly legitimate to call the monster Frankenstein as well, because he's sort of a descendant of the doctor. He's Adam Frankenstein, essentially. Moving on.
Indeed. He's also described the character of Pinocchio, saying he's a creature that is created through unnatural means from a father that he then distances himself from, and has to learn about failure and pain and loneliness.
So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that in this version, the Blue Fairy is evil.
I think we just gotta wait and find out.
Which isn't entirely unreasonable, because there are plenty of stories about mortals getting in over their heads with the Sidhe and then completely getting ruined by it. But as far as we knew in the original version, the Blue Fairy was one of the more benevolent of the Fae folk, and now you basically turned the Blue Fairy into Mab. Which is funny, but also kind of fucked up when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Also, it says, final line, Pinocchio is expected to be released on Netflix sometime in 2021.
Okay, if nothing else, I'm at least interested to see how this works, because the premise doesn't sound like it'll work very well, but it's Guillermo del Toro, and it's Jim Henson Company, and so it's almost impossible to fuck up. So if anything else, I'm going to be watching it to see if they manage to fuck it up or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got nothing to say. I'm intrigued because it's honestly the first time I heard about the movie. I didn't know that Guillermo del Toro was making a movie.
Yeah, I thought they had scrapped Tim Burton's Pinocchio for Disney and they were going to give it to Guillermo del Toro. That would have been ballsy, by the way, Disney, if you had given the live action remake of Pinocchio to Guillermo del Toro. I would have actually applauded you for that.
You know, I honestly really want to see his Frankenstein. You know,
Yeah, given that he compared Frankenstein to Pinocchio of all things. I almost now want to see what he would do with Frankenstein. Although I would actually want to see an accurate Frankenstein from the book because most adaptations of Frankenstein have bone fucking nothing to do with the book.
yeah, I actually thought of an adaptation of Frankenstein. It was a little, honestly, yeah, it had really nothing to do with the book mainly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie.
There was a mini series that tried to adapt the book once, and it was actually pretty good, but it was on a made-for-TV budget, so it skimmed a little bit.
Hmm. Mine took more of like the classic kind of pulp horror adventure kind of route.
Ah, ah.
Hmm. And we're just kind of waiting for the last article
Mm-hmm.
to load. That's awkward. There.
Did anyone in the comments say things while we were ranting?
Not for, well, not since 1020. So,
Ah,
alright, so I think for the most part it's loaded. Yeah.
mhm.
Okay. Alright, so yeah, this will be our last article of the night. And yeah.
Mhm.
Alright, so this is from Games Radar, or yeah, Games Radar. It's written by Chris Arendt about a day ago. Uh, DC pulls Warren Ellis's death metal story following a series of allegations.
My reaction to this will really depend on the allegations and whether there's evidence for them.
Alright, so alright, so Disney, Jesus, DC has pulled. I know. DC has pulled. Has God. No, I read that right actually. DC has pulled a planned Warren Ellis slash Jim Cheong story from the August 4th Dark Knights Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights #1 anthology. Uh, I really gotta keep. I honestly should really keep up to date with comic news
Mm-hmm.
because I never heard of this.
I had heard of it, and I heard it was kind of a sequel to Dark Knight's Metal.
I never got into that.
No, me either. I lost my shit when Daniel showed up. Because I hate Daniel.
I'm not even gonna ask you to let go, man.
Nor should you. Get to the end of Sandman and tell me Daniel is an annoying little shit.
Okay, so the previously announced two-page story in Dark Knight's Death Metal Legends of Dark Knight's #1. Jesus Christ, motherfuckers, stop giving these such long titles.
Learn to be simplistic. Dark Dark Knight's Metal or Dark Knight's Death Metal was plenty enough.
Right. By Warren Ellis and Jim Cheung will be replaced with a two-page story written by Marguerite Bennett and illustrated by Jamal Engel. Reads the announcement to retailers in an email sent out Friday evening.
This makes me sad because Warren Ellis is one of the original British invasion people who hasn't lost his touch.
Wait, didn't he write
Castlevania, yes.
well, that and also The Boys?
Um,
No, that's Garth Ennis.
yeah. I know. I always get those confused too.
Yeah. Okay. So where was what was Okay. Uh, the publisher did not provide a reason for the removal of the story, which was to be the origin of the alternate universe Batman who lived in a robotic Tyrannosaurus Rex, B Rex.
What? Like, that is both the stupidest and most awesome thing I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, there are some things that you just have to sit in awe of. Goddamn.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what was that? The removal, however, what the fuck? Fucking stupid ass videos. Anyway, the removal, however, comes just days after several women alleged sexual misconduct by Warren Ellis dating back to the early 2000s, and a day after Ellis himself released a statement seemingly in response to the allegations.
Okay, if he gets kicked off of Castlevania for this, heads will roll. I swear to God.
Well, it depends.
I don't know what once you have the stink of hashtag Me Too on you, things get complicated for you. And the Castlevania adaptation was his baby since like the late '90s, I believe. So do not you dare touch my Castlevania. I don't care if he did do terrible things. It was probably quite a while ago, and he should at least be allowed to finish what he started. You don't want to give him stuff after that, then fine, but let him at least finish Castlevania off.
Mhm. Okay. Katie West, a former friend of Ellis's, was the first to allege misconduct in a now deleted Twitter thread, which is highlighted here, so I assume it's archived. Following West's statements, Meredith Yayanos, if I'm saying that name wrong, I'm sorry, former colleague of Ellis's who inspired a character in his comic book series Planetary, followed, describing her own series of allegations and characterizations of Ellis's conduct.
Okay, where's the evidence? You can allege things all day long, but it doesn't make them true.
Well, I looked at Katie West's Twitter thing.
Mm.
She, it's just a tweet saying that she deleted the thread because she didn't want her uh, life ruined. I think is what it said. I closed it real quick, so reopening that. Give me a sec.
Well, okay, darling, how exactly would your life be ruined when you're accusing Warren Ellis of doing terrible shit? More than likely, his life will be ruined, and your life will improve significantly because you now have victim cash to spend.
I'm not, for the record, we're not really trying to call her out more of. It's just we're trying to.
No, it's just provide evidence, substantial evidence that what he did was substantially wrong, and if it was, then I will consider agreeing with you. I still don't think he should lose his job over it, especially if this was like 20 to 30 years ago. But I'll at least be sympathetic to you. But if you can't provide a lick of evidence, then I'm gonna
Okay,
go ahead and
so
wonder why it's taken 20 years for you to come out with this.
well, she also says I don't want it to ruin anyone else's. It's not about.
Okay, good for her then. If if she is unsure enough of her accusations to at least rethink ruining his life, then I rescind my maybe being a little bit confrontational with her just a minute ago. Because me too accusers very rarely, if ever, rethink their actions. And incidentally, dear DC, if the person who made the accusations doesn't want those accusations to ruin anyone's life, then you are officially not then you are officially doing something wrong, because if the person who made the accusations is telling you don't ruin his life over this and you fire him anyway, that is you being squarely in the wrong. It's like if a victim of, I don't know, a purse snatching says, I'm going to drop the charges, you don't get to walk up to that person and go, but you should still ruin his life though because he did the bad thing. Well, if it should be up to the person who was hypothetically victimized by this person as to whether or not they're going to pass charges over them. And if it's not, then you're using this woman as a tool and you are victimizing her by not being sympathetic to her wishes. And you can fuck off. Women are not tools just to nuke everyone who you don't like for whatever reason.
Anyway, yeah. So these two, guys, if you want to read these, I might check out the links that they have in these articles. There are links down below in the description to these articles if you want to read them yourself. Okay. Ellis's subsequent statement did not address any specific allegations or alleged victims directly, but admits one culpability in what he refers to as these mistakes. I hurt people deeply. I am ashamed for these mistakes, and I am profoundly sorry. Ellis states in his Orbital Operations email newsletter, I will not speak against other people's personal truths. I will not expose them to the toxicity of the current discourse. I should have been more aware, more present, and more respectful of people's feelings. And for that, I apologize.
Notice that he never actually admitted to doing anything wrong. He just said that he made some people uncomfortable, basically. Which is not a crime at the moment, anyway. He might have just been a bit too forceful when he was coming on to somebody. And I doubt that if he had actually gone through with what would qualify as an assault, that he would even still be talking about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because he feels guilty doesn't mean he actually did anything that would substantively require he feel guilty over. And even if he did, the person who made the accusation told you to fuck off now.
That was a fairly short one.
Yeah, apparently.
Anyway, where was I? Okay. Ellis is currently writing DC's The Batman's Grave and is writer/executive producer of Netflix's Castlevania. His previous comics work has been adapted into feature film and TV episodes. including his Iron Man Extremis arc that formed the basis of Marvel Studios' Iron Man 3, and at various times he has overseen publishing imprints for Marvel Comics, DC, and Avatar Press.
Yeah, Warren Ellis is awesome.
I have never considered myself famous or powerful to the point where I've made a lot of bad jokes about it for 20 odd years, Ellis writes. It had never really occurred to me that other people didn't see it the same way, that I was not engaging as an equal when gifted with attention, but acting from a position of power and privilege. I did not take that into account in a number of my personal interactions, and this was a mistake, and I own it.
So he made a few jokes that made people uncomfortable, and that's not a crime. And I'm not even going to address the privilege woo because we've already addressed privilege woo a lot tonight, and I'm not dealing with it again.
Yeah.
Plus, hearing Warren Ellis, of all people, talk about privilege makes me want to take a ice pick to my brain.
Mm-hmm. Ellis also announced his decision to end his long-running email newsletter, which he has published under various titles since 1995.
That's kind of sad. I was never a subscriber to it, but that's still kind of sad. If he's been publishing it since the year I was born, that's oof. That's really, really oof.
Yeah. It's a short one. I will grant you that. I have nothing really to say. It's more
unless I'm misremembering, Warren Ellis wrote some of the original Hellblazer, so go ahead and read that.
Well, I wanted to say that unless there's actual substantial evidence, I'm taking this all with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Ditto. Provide for us the evidence or get the fuck out.
Right. So overall, that's kind of us. Okay. So also, some kind of dealios need to be set up. Okay. So if you have noticed, folks, at the beginning of this pod, when you see the first thing in the chat is going to be a Discord link. That is a permanent link, and I will be doing that from now on.
Because we have a podcast, the Storm Discord, and we hope to see y'all there.
Yeah. Right now, it's only me, Dalton, and Chrononaut, I believe. And it's cool. Just another social place for people who enjoy our little rants and weirdness.
Yeah. And possibly to recommend us things if you would prefer we rant about other things.
Not picky.
Yeah, no. As long as we think it'll make a good enough show.
Yep. Okay, so comic recommendations. So you recommended Hellblazer. I'm gonna recommend Sandman, Doom Patrol. That's pretty much it because that's all.
Also, while we're recommending Warren Ellis things, if you guys haven't watched Netflix's Castlevania, you should. It's probably the best video game adaptation we've ever had. And it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Also, I've heard good things about Planetary.
I've never even heard of that.
There are some videos on it. I'll send it to you later.
Cool.
Anyway, so yeah, folks, with that, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom. Nah, fuck off.